Hello and welcome to Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis, and discussions. I'm Yang Guang. In this episode, we will take a look at LeBron James' latest achievement in the NBA and other veterans of the league. How are they doing this season? Are we seeing more longevity in athletes' professional careers? Today, to unpack the questions, I'm joined here with my co-hosts Tianyu and Brandon Yates. All right, LeBron James just played his first game after his 40th birthday. 23 points, 7 assists. Even though the Lakers lost to his ex-team, the Cleveland Cavaliers eventually, LeBron James still put up consistent numbers. This season, he's averaging 23.4 points with nearly 50% of field goal percentage. You don't see these stats in a 40-year-old athlete. So, Tian, looking at these numbers and his performance recently on the court, would you call LeBron James the best ever 40-plus-year-old athlete?
Well, earlier today, I read a post about LeBron James, and it says that back in the May of 2015, when LeBron was dominating the Eastern Conference on his way to his then fifth consecutive trip to the NBA Finals, a Twitter user posted on his account and he tweeted, "LeBron is 30. This won't go on for much longer, thank God." And the post went so viral and it went on to say that after more than 25,000 retweets, this tweet has become an unofficial punching bag to be used whenever James defies Father Time. And since that tweet in 2015, James has reached 5 NBA Finals and won 2 NBA championships and broken the league's all-time scoring record. So the truth is that this is indeed going on for longer than anyone has ever really expected him to do. So, and just on the first day of 2025, like you said, he just scored 23 points when playing against his former team, Cleveland. And he has been averaging over 22 points and 9 assists after over 20 games played this year. So yeah, I don't think these stats could be often seen on a 40-plus man. And most of the 40-plus men I know around me couldn't even shoot the ball into the basket, not to mention to dunk and maintain a high level of shooting accuracy like James. So yeah, I mean, we could clearly see this season that there are a lot of the moments that in the games to show that Father Time is really coming to him, and he looked like he's declining. But it's fair to say that his longevity of high level of play is second to none in the history of NBA. And he definitely counts as, in my opinion, as one of the best ever 40-plus player across different sports.
I think when LeBron James was 30 years old, everyone was expecting his decline from there. But his decline was so slow. Yeah, there was a decline, but it was so slow that we haven't noticed anything, it seems like. So that's amazing from an athlete in his 40 years old. I mean, LeBron James recently said that if he would like to, he could play 5 or even 7 more years in the league. And plus, with this news, a couple of days ago, his second son, Bryce James, announced he will play for the University of Arizona to start his college basketball career. So that means maybe in 2 or 3 years, we could see LeBron James play alongside 2 of his sons together in the league. That would be an untouchable record.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, for any players in history, even for other sports. Brandon, what do you think of this status of LeBron James playing his 40s and the potential of playing alongside 2 of his sons?
I think in 20 years' time, we're going to see LeBron James coaching his grandson. I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think this guy's just going to stick around at the NBA at the absolute highest level. And, like before before we started this podcast, again, this topic, like I mentioned, I said it makes me feel a lot less old because this is a fantastic topic, and it's great to see that men in their 40s are, well, very few, but some are still performing at the very highest level, and LeBron James is just the ultimate representation of that. I mean, what he, like you've mentioned, Yang Guang, the fact that he's averaging over 20 points this season and, I think almost 10 rebounds, almost 10 assists per game, and, still performing at the highest level for one of the biggest franchises in the league. It just really is remarkable. And like you already mentioned as well, there's been very few signs of decline, and even the signs of decline have been so slow, it's almost gone unnoticed. So that's just testament to his talent, but also the way that himself and his team have been able to manage his career and his body and his longevity, which is absolutely incredible. And just, I mean, in terms of what he's been able to achieve in his latter years, breaking the all-time point scoring record, the all-time minutes record, and we've already mentioned, playing with his son for the Lakers. He's just been able to do so much. So I think, as of his 40th birthday, I would say, I don't know if he's the greatest of all time to do it in his 40s. I think we'll talk about that later on in the pod. But in terms of right now, I think he stands head and shoulders above anybody else that's performing at the highest level in their sport in their 40s. I think there are some in the future that may also reach this level. I think Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, I think that he has the
Definitely, yeah.
potential to go on way into his 40s and still, bang in, 15, 20 goals a season in any league. Particularly if he's playing up front and he has a team around him that's able to provide him with great assists. But when we're looking at current performers, what LeBron James is doing for the Los Angeles Lakers is truly remarkable. And I think that when we look back at his career when he retires, but although like we've already mentioned, he may go on for another 4, 5, 6 seasons, and he may even see a second son join him in the NBA. But when we do look back at his career, I think of course what he's been able to achieve and the titles that he's won and everything like that, and his talent and his inclusion in the greatest of all time conversation, I think a lot of those will be talking points. But another massive point will be his longevity and what he's been able to do in the latter stages of his career when he's supposedly no longer at his peak. So I think that he's a great example of somebody that truly maximized their talent, maximized their longevity in their career, and is going to go down as probably, one of the greatest and longest serving top performing athletes of all time. And it's been amazing to watch from the beginning of his career and up until now. It's been really, really phenomenal.
Right. Actually, when I cast this question to you guys, my first assumption is already, yes, he is the best ever 40-plus-year-old athlete in history. I mean, he can still make iconic moves, penetrating into the paint, throwing it down in front of no matter defenders in the middle of the way. Of course, there's a decline in his athleticism, especially on the defensive side of the game. But to me, he still got it all. And most importantly, his influence on the game is still there. He can still change the course of the game and decide the game when it matters the most. We saw so many players, when they get older, they can only act as role players or bench players like Carmelo Anthony, like Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. But LeBron James has been the absolute pillar of the team since day one.
Yeah.
He entered the league and still is when he's 40 years old. So that's one of the reasons why I think he's the best 40-year-old athlete of all time. He has made it look so easy to play in one's 40s, but actually throughout history and across different sports, playing at one's 40 years old is just
no easy feat.
Yeah, it's very rare to see. So Tianyu, who else do you think have maintained high-level performance in their 40s when we, talk about athletes?
Well, as Brandon just mentioned, the first name that pops into my mind is definitely going to be Cristiano Ronaldo,
Okay.
who is about to turn 40 years old next month. And yeah, in last year he just became the first footballer to finish as top scorer in 4 different leagues, namely the English, Spanish, Italian, and Saudi leagues. And yeah, I think with his self-discipline, the way he trains, the high standard he's been sticking up to for all these years, I'm pretty sure going into 2025 he will remain a powerful striker and prolific scorer, and also a great athlete after turning into 40 years old. And also in other sports, in American football, it would be a mistake to not mention the name of Tom Brady,
Of course, yeah.
who is widely considered the GOAT among NFL quarterbacks. I don't know much about American football, but just looking at the records and the titles that he won will let us know how great and brilliant a player he is. 7 signature Super Bowl rings, 47 playoff starts, and the most passing touchdowns and completions, and an enduring 23 seasons. And I think these numbers are really enough to show how high level a player he has been, and how hard it is for him to maintain the level until the age of 45. And also, apart from that, in golf, the all-time greatest, Tiger Woods.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, there's nobody in the world that has really dominated a sport of their sport so thoroughly like Tiger Woods did in golf. 14 major titles from 1997 to 2008, and then one more after a decade of slumps and injuries in 2019. So most importantly, he hasn't really retired and is still active on the golf course at the age of 47, which is incredibly inspiring for us. And other names would include Serena Williams in tennis, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in basketball. They're all living legends that proved us that 40 is the new 20 for these elite players.
Right. I guess the length of one's professional sports career is different from sports to sports. Like in golf, we saw many 40-plus-year-old athletes still active on the tour. And like in chess, if we can call it a sport, there are even 70, 80-year-old athletes. But in other sports like basketball and football, playing in one's 40s is actually very hard, very difficult. Brandon, any particular impression from those 40-year-old or 40-plus-year-old athletes?
Yeah, I mean, we've already mentioned there's just very few. I think there's been a couple of examples over the years, like we've already mentioned, of athletes that are performing and still consistently competing at a relatively high level in their respective sport and in their respective league. But there's very few that are still performing at their highest level. I think LeBron James is a very good example of that. I think that he's still one of the best players in the NBA and still putting up incredible numbers. And he broke, so many records in the last 12 months. But then again, I don't think that LeBron James or the LA Lakers are looking anywhere close to winning an NBA championship. So when we're having this discussion, when you think of somebody like Tom Brady, who
Yeah.
was able to win a Super Bowl in American football at the age of 43, that's truly remarkable, because if you also compare
Yeah.
the two sports, the NFL is a lot more physical than the NBA. I know the quarterback position isn't exactly the most physical position in the league, but it is a position where, someone can take multiple hits across the season from, men that have been training their entire lives to hit people as hard as they possibly can. So and Tom Brady was taking those hits at the age of 43 and was still able to go on and win a Super Bowl with a relatively inexperienced and not particularly talented Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So that's, I
Yeah.
think Tom Brady definitely deserves to be included in that conversation with LeBron James. Brett Favre was also able to do incredible things in his 40s. I think he led his team to an NFC championship at the age of 40, also in the NFL, which is another incredible achievement. And this was many, many years ago, way before all of the modern advancements in, healthcare and workout regimes and that sort of thing. So to be able to do it, 20 or 30 years ago is also a remarkable feat. And Yang Guang, you mentioned, it also kind of really depends on the sport. So there are a couple of examples of men in their 40s that are not competing in a physical sport like golf, for example. I know it is physical in terms of, it can be quite strenuous and mentally challenging, and it can be quite fatiguing, and it can have impacts on the joints and the knees and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't say it's not a physical sport, but you're not taking hits or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it is one of those sports where I think if you take care of yourself and you're lucky and you also have, massive amounts of talent, you can also do incredible things. So we know Tiger Woods won a historic Masters at 43, and one of the greatest of all time, Jack Nicklaus, won his final major at 46.
Yeah.
So there have been examples of and they're all American. So there seems to be a lot of American examples in sports like the NBA, the NFL, and in golf, where athletes have been performing at a very high level, and we've also mentioned other names that have performed at a high level in their 40s, but I would say a handful that have been able to compete at the highest level and win championships. So I mean, for example, just in this question, I think I've only mentioned 4 names that have been competing at the highest level and winning championships. So it just shows you what LeBron James has been able to do is remarkable, and what the other names that I've mentioned have been able to do is also just incredible, because there are probably less than 10 names that we can mention over the course of history that have been able to, win championships and titles in their 40s. I think Cristiano Ronaldo could potentially, I hope to see him at another World Cup and hopefully lift a title with Portugal. I would love to see that happen, to reopen the GOAT conversation with Lionel Messi, and that conversation is currently closed for me, at least, after Messi won with Argentina. But yeah, it's just specifically focusing on LeBron James and what he's currently doing in his 40s is truly remarkable, because like we've already mentioned, there are probably less than 5 or 10 names that we can mention that have done the same, and I think there aren't any others, maybe besides Ronaldo, that are currently performing just before their 40s or in their 40s at the highest level.
Yeah. I was equally impressed with Tom Brady when he was 42, 43 years old. I mean, he was equally good as James now. I mean, moving from one team to another for an athlete is no easy job, not even mentioning for a 40-year-old athlete. But Tom Brady didn't only make it a smooth transition, but led the Buccaneers to the NFL championship. That was insane. And in football, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, when he returned to Italy, to the Serie A from the US, no one was expecting him to reach his second peak.
Yeah.
But he really led that average AC Milan squad to the Serie A title. I would say he was the mental leader of that team.
And he had that knee injury that he recovered from. He had that really horrific knee injury that he bounced back from so quickly at his age. That was also remarkable. I think that's when he made the famous comments, I don't recover like a human being, I'm a lion, so lions recover much quicker than humans. And I think he might have a bit of lion DNA in his genes.
Yeah, he really is a lion. And another player from Japan, I mean, the 56-year-old
I know you're talking about. Yeah.
I just wondered how many years he has played in football. I mean, like 30 plus years.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
I think he's
still,
nearly 60.
still
I think he's like 56 or 57 or something.
56 years old.
The fact that he's alive in football is a miracle.
Yeah, I just don't know if the teams hire him because he's good or for the sake of extending this legendary story. So that was very interesting. But when we take a look at these older players in different sports, especially in basketball and football, I mean, in the past we often saw centers in basketball like Mutombo, like Bill Russell, and goalkeepers in football like Zoff, like Gianluigi Buffon, surpass 40 years old in their professional careers. But now it seems like to me that it is more common to see players from different sports, from different roles, from different positions to play in their 40s. Do you agree, Tianyu?
Yeah, I would definitely say so because this phenomenon I would say is largely due to the rapid advancements in science, in sports training, rehabilitation, and other kinds of application of technologies. I think technological development has helped most modern players train more wisely so that they can get more targeted training and effectively avoid getting injured. So, like in basketball, a lot of the players used to spend hours in the gym and just focused on shooting baskets. But now every team in the NBA is equipped with professional training designers that that will customize the training plan and schedule for every type of player in the team. And outside the gym on the basketball court, the players will also incorporate a lot of meditation, massage, and even sleep training into their plans to maximize their body and energy. So yeah, I would say the advancements in science and technology are making it easier for athletes to prolong their professional careers. And we do see more and more players play well into their 40s, just like the names we just mentioned. But still, it's a very daunting task to really defy Father Time, and most players are just gonna suffering from a decline of the body and playing level when they're past their peak age. And that just makes athletes like LeBron James, Tom Brady, and Tiger Woods even more impressive and admirable, considering the length and height of their careers.
Yeah, I bet LeBron James is paying more attention and time on rehabilitation than training itself at this age.
Yeah.
Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look back at the past, there were some examples where many athletes were ahead of their time and doing things that were seemingly strange at the time that are very common now. One example is Ryan Giggs, who was obviously a phenomenal footballer for Manchester United and was also able to have a very, very long career. And I know a lot of former players like Roy Keane and Paul Scholes and Gary Neville have mentioned that even in his early 20s, he would take part in yoga around the training facilities. And, his teammates would look at him and think, what are you doing? This is such a weird technique. Like, why are you stretching your body? And they'd never seen or heard of anything like yoga before. And of course, now it's incredibly common for athletes to stretch and take care of their bodies. But, 20 plus years ago, it wasn't that common. So, I think that's why some athletes in the past were able to do it. But now, like Tian already mentioned, advancements in sports science, nutrition, and recovery techniques have definitely extended many, many athletes' careers and will continue to do so. And I know we keep mentioning Cristiano Ronaldo, but all of his teammates also, and LeBron James for that matter, his teammates too, all mention how seriously they take recovery and their training methods and their nutrition, and not just in their 40s, but from a very, very early age. And I think, ability to take care of themselves as well as their continuation of that, I think that's been able to elongate their careers. And I think a lot of teams, coaches, athletes are now taking note of that. And it's just become commonplace in all sports. So, look, I think it will depend from sport to sport. I don't think we're going to see many NFL players or rugby players or, any heavy contact sport players performing at the highest level into their 40s. But I think there are a couple of sports and sports positions where if you're lucky and you have good genetics, but you also take care of yourself, it is definitely possible to go on very much into your 40s. And additionally, evolving roles and load management in team sports is also going to allow aging stars to elongate their careers. So, managing the minutes of someone like LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo going into the future is going to be incredibly important if we still want them to have an impact in their 40s. So I think there are a variety of methods where many athletes will be able to continue to perform at a very high level in their 40s. But I think it's also, as much as there has been advancement in training and nutrition and, recovery and all of that sort of thing, I think a lot of it is also down to a bit of good luck, avoiding injuries and also having good genetics. I mean, a lot of these star athletes are genetically gifted. They are born with sporting abilities, but they're also born with, athleticism and other genetics that, you can't really build in a lab or, fix in a gym. So I think it's a combination of a variety of factors, but I think that with advancement in many sporting fields, particularly with things like we've mentioned, like nutrition, recovery, training methods, load management, etc., I think we will see an upward trajectory of athletes performing into their 40s going into the future.
Right. Michael Jordan played to his 40s decades ago. I guess now with the technology, with all the advancement in nutrition and all the measures you just mentioned, I guess he could play into his 50s maybe.
That's possible.
But let's move back to the NBA and take a look at some other veteran players of the league, like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Paul George, Chris Paul. They haven't reached the 40s, but they are still belong to the old generation players that still have a big fan base, not only in China, but around the world. So, Brandon, any impression of these veterans' performance so far this season in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, for example, I mean, they're still performing relatively well in the NBA, even though the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns aren't doing particularly well in the league. I mean, Curry's still a very pivotal player for the Golden State Warriors, averaging over 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, but only shooting 36.3% from beyond the arc. But despite the team's recent struggles, I think his individual contributions are still very significant. And Durant, of course, like we now know that he's with the Phoenix Suns, he's also faced many injury setbacks, which I think, especially for someone at his age, is very difficult to bounce back from. But that being said, he's also delivered some strong performances across the season, including a season high 43 points in a very recent game. So I think both veterans are still maintaining very high levels of play and adapting their games to remain effective and influential on their respective teams. So yeah, we've already mentioned, I mean, they aren't exactly at LeBron's age as of yet, but I think there are also two examples of aging veterans who have been massive stars in the NBA that, again, combined with a bit of luck and, continued taking care of themselves, not just individually, but from a team perspective as well. So for all of the doctors and management and etc. from their teams also taking care of their bodies and managing their minutes and all of that sort of thing. I think they are also two great examples of athletes that can kind of decide how long they can go on for, and I think they can also determine at what level they can continue to play at. Look, it's not an exact science because they also, basketball is a team sport, so they do need to have some players and, coaching staff around them that are going to be able to help lift their performance as well. But just looking at an individual level, I think Durant and Curry are two great potential examples of NBA players that could go on to reach the longevity levels of someone like LeBron James.
Yeah, I think it's our privilege to see these players, these veterans, still active and play at a very high level in the NBA, because inevitably their slump will be more obvious as the season progresses and in the following seasons. So all the best wishes for these veteran players, including LeBron James, Congratulations on his new achievement after his 40th birthday. Still active on the NBA court. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website, radio.cgtn.com. See you next time.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.